Let's break all of this down with our guest for this hour. And in Los Angeles, California, forensic psychiatrist and trial expert witness, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Thank you both for being on. Dr. Lieberman, I want to ask you about this defendant and the way he looks in court today. Just your observations, because I know you've had a lot to say about what could be some of the issues that just in seeing him and the information that we have on his background could come potentially in the future in this trial, especially if there is a mental health evaluation. I also want to show you two different videos of this defendant. We've recorded him a week ago when he first arrived in Idaho. This is similar to how he looked in Pennsylvania when I saw him, but there were no cameras there on the left. And then on the right is how he appears today, a little bit different. Shanley noted those scratches that did look different to us in the sheriff there or the jail saying that that was from shaving today. Your thoughts on Brian Kohberger?
Yes, when you compare the two, you really can see some of the differences. In his first appearance, he looked a little more aggressive. You know, he looked a little more sure of himself. He made a greeting to his attorney, and he just seemed much more animated. In today's appearance, it's like, you know, what 2 weeks of being in jail do to you. You know, I think that that's part of it, but he didn't look at his attorney at all, didn't make any connection with her at all. Which, you know, might not mean anything necessarily about their relationship, but on the other hand, perhaps it shows that he is less positively, you know, thinks of her a little less positively. It doesn't have to mean anything. But what is concerning is how he is less, you know, when he answered to the judge in his first appearance in Idaho, he answered, you know, he said the same thing. It was just yes, you know, to all the different questions. But you got the impression that he was almost like a defense attorney himself at that time. Like he seemed really sure, you know, yes, like yes, I know I'm going to be exonerated. Yes. And today it was much more subdued. And, you know, it just seemed he was sort of a weakened version of himself.
You have had great insight in talking about him. I know you've been following this, but I have one follow-up question to that.
Sure.
Because I was there in Pennsylvania, and when I noticed him in the courtroom, his eyes were searching the entire room. He was looking for his family, and he made this connection with his family members and did that nod that you see him in that video that we're showing he gave to his attorney that time. He did that with all of his family members. He even turned around again to make sure they were all there and nod at a different family member. But that's when he was at home. That's when he was surely very surprised by everything that had happened and had been very soon before that been arrested. I want to know what his attorneys are likely considering. They may be able to get him a mental health evaluation. Are they picking up on cues from him, or is it going to be standard for them to order that, or do they hang back because they don't want that information to necessarily be something prosecutors can look at?
Well, you know, I think they might decide to try to get him examined by a psychiatrist or a psychologist to try to get him to be found incompetent to stand trial. That would be sort of the typical thing to do at first. You know, the Idaho doesn't have the death penalty, doesn't have not guilty by reason of insanity. And so they aren't going to be able to present a defense of that, but they would be able to present some kind of psychiatric defense just in terms of what problems or what he's suffering from that might have impacted as far as mitigating factors, at least for his sentencing.
Absolutely. Thank you for all that information. Dr. Lieberman, let me talk to you about body language. I know that you're an expert in that and observations of different people. And we have this defendant who is now 24 years out from his wife's death. Have you been able to see some of the video that we've shown of him there in the courtroom? And what's your take on Mark Jensen?
Like the witness was saying about how he was laughing at his wife's funeral, I presume that was what that was. And in the courtroom, he certainly doesn't seem, well, there he seems a little worried, actually, but very intent. But in some of the other pictures, he's really not he doesn't seem to, certainly he doesn't seem to be missing her, you know, grieving her. I mean, yes, it has been quite a while, but I think he's determined to get acquitted. But you know, there was some interesting testimony about a friend of his son's, you know, who the sons supposedly talked to him when they were in 3rd grade and talked about his father letting his mother die. That was very compelling testimony.
Yeah, that was difficult testimony from a person who's now in their 30s, recalling what they remember when they were 8 years old. And I have to say goodbye to Dr. Carole Lieberman. Thanks so much for joining us.